Good afternoon. I'd like to begin my presentation with two short videos that I would not explain, and then after that I will go directly to my presentation. Jim? I'll only play 5 minutes of this one. If you want to see it, you can visit it on YouTube.
They call it train surfing, or the Spider-Man. It's highly illegal, not to mention life-threatening. Yet daily, Soweto teenagers dice with death as they seek the ultimate adrenaline rush. During the recent security guard strike, 3 boys were electrocuted while surfing. Many more have been injured. Despite this, train surfing has become a popular death. So who are these young rebels without a cause? And why do they risk life and limb for this dangerous sport?
Which they have described as a national crisis. This comes as yet another person died and another suffered serious injuries after being thrown out of a moving train on the East Rand yesterday.
Like being turned was done me, I can believe we strike on 2000. Let me do this. That's what I can't give it a piece.
Trains in Soweto have increasingly been left unguarded. So many boys have taken to surfing, with nothing but the limits of their courage to stop them.
Yazi intanyana lezi incane lezi ikhulayo yathi zithanda izinto yabo sangibona ngiyenza lesithini sakibela uyazilandela steps yathi ezingawazi ukuthi abuya bona abawazi vela kibela yathi
yasaba ukufa ngoba ukufa inyinto yabo oyinyinto dala ngibabona abangani bami bafa phambi kwami into ezanjani. But khona into engibuya ngizigubhude indoda ungadlali istaff indoda ayingayenzini. But khona nje usathana ufika ngamandla manje ngicindezela yabo ngidlala istaff. Abo nami ngibona ukuthi okay umuntu ogcina edlandleni yabo. Asisteka amagelezile ayamshayela umetric. Nami ngifisa ukufana nawo maka wayi mina ngakhona. Ngibhizi njalo ngidlalana nestaff. Nami ngiyancanywa vele ukufana naye yabo. Wathi wana le gazi iphuma izigabhile yabo. Okay, time manyana itibhali la time ligibela. Nami ngazibona sengigibela la trans.
Shoot like as long as the fans are in the field, man. I'm like one of the sleep, my way. Because I try there was a cousin. Shoot like at least there's home entertainment in the weekends. Home entertainment, yeah. They offer more. Shoot like kitchen, train, draw. Platform as a pay lang. That's home entertainment. Bese khona iviva la rasa ke yaphezulu ke ngena ngishama iviva la rasa etho into esikanjalo yabo angiba ngitshela ukuthi ngithanda uku-entertain inhleki yabo mara ngi-entertain ngento ezero Kubeka nayo, just kidding.
Prince got the name bitch nigga from songs by American rap stars 50 Cent and Tupac.
Ngayuza ingoma yakhona ne. Bishikazi. Ngashayela igama inhleki yathi because nami ngisaseyisoka ngidla abantwana yabo. Kanti mangihlanganisa bitch, nigga. Yathi into eyi-one yathi yimi engaziveza yathi bebangangazi ukuthi uthanda yathi bengihlale ngifika every time ngihlale ngigqoke impahla ezimnyama. Every time ngigqoke yabo ile matrix. Ngigqokelele ngaka bootsy yabo. Gqoke njengele matrix. Yazi plus beyisadlala ile matrix yamalanga akhona. Bagcina inhleki manje like siba nokuma bangibukele yabona sekunofika nje abantwana besikolo bamele mina bayazi yena.
Thanks, Jim. Okay, unfortunately, this video would not play, so I would go straight to my presentation by introducing the project that I co-founded in Johannesburg, the Center for Historical Reenactments. CHR began with a question that had largely to do with historical legacies and their resonance and impact on contemporary art, and a willingness to respond to current agencies that have grown over the debris of history. One of our first projects was thinking through the concept of rope-a-dope as a form of political resistance, a fighting strategy employed by Muhammad Ali to defeat then reigning champion George Foreman during the infamous Rumble in the Jungle boxing match held in Kinshasa, Zaire at the time, now Congo, on October 30, 1974. Rope-a-dope it's based on the idea of enduring an adversary's repeated blows to a point of exhaustion before finally rising up to triumph over them. Its revival in contemporary politics and creative strategies was an invitation for us to revisit a historic moment with a return to a metaphorical ring. However, rope-a-dope is not a glorification of suffering of the individual in order to create, nor is it concerned with winning as a result. It is rather an observation into an everyday practice that for most is an inevitable part of life. Rope-a-dope considers the potentialities of not doing, of inaction, of the alertness in watching things go by. We're interested in practices where these rituals of self-preservation become form and the blows taken are indications of imagination at work. In his essay titled Necropolitics, Achille Mbembe writes, and I quote, "The historical self-creation of humankind is a life and death conflict. That is, a conflict over what paths should lead to the truth of history, overcoming of capitalism and the commodity form and the contradictions associated with both." Through my presentation, I aim to discuss selected moments of projects or within projects initiated by a Center for Historical Reenactments as an artistic platform which I am founding member, in which these life and death conflicts are made tangible, if only for them to become indefinable yet again. The projects take on many forms in order to refuse to accept the limits of form and of questions developed about us, but without us. In 2011, CHR declared this pink elephant you see on the picture, Jumbo, a memory bank, a site of memory through which our projects Naguranza departed from. The pink elephant is a symbol of a liquor chain in Johannesburg, but this particular one has been deserted, as most buildings have been in this area post-1994. The elephant became ever more visible after Jito Baloyi, a South African-based Mozambican musician, was killed on this corner in April 2004, 10 years ago. The crime-related murder created a landmark for which the elephant was the most visible symbol. Baloyi's 1997 album and single, Naguranza, which in English means I love you, was employed as a title of the project. For the first 2 years of our existence as CHR, we were located in a project space on the 3rd floor of a nearby building. A large east-facing window of the space looked out to End Street, the parallel Nugget Street, and the adjoining Kerk Street. Jumbo, who is located at the corner of Kerk and Nugget Streets, was therefore a permanent feature of our view. Naguranza was conceptualized out of a desire to not be confined by the walls of the space, but to be driven by the desire to come out. Through a series of public actions taking place one spring day, we revisited this site of trauma by engaging in acts that draw attention to the forgotten stories and sideline truths of history beyond those of grand narratives. Jito Baloyi's death coming to represent all other traumas symptomatic of this area: xenophobia, gendered violence, crime, etc. We also wanted to interact with spaces in public, not in order to beautify, monumentalize, commemorate, or make a memory tangible. Instead, Naguranza was an exercise in giving and taking without permission, and in finding a grammar to inhabit a space of trauma without duplicating it. With the project's Fragile, we took the opportunity to interact with the self-declared, self-run, and self-funded institution, the Alf Khumalo Museum, which is located in an area of Soweto called Diepkloof. During a brief visit to the museum in 2011, we were confronted with a room cluttered with 5 decades of Khumalo's life and career as a photographer, whose lens witnessed history as it was taking shape. A few months after our visit, we proposed to Mr. Khumalo to allow us to be in residence for 72 hours, in which we, by way of cleaning up the cluttered room, would help us to also think through how we can push these ideas of coming out even further. The project was driven by questions regarding fragility of memory, of archives, as well as hierarchies inherent in the memory industry or the franchising of memory. The cleaning up for us was a learning process, not an act of charity. We're confronted with images, documents, diary entries, negative, outdated darkroom equipment, all which unraveled moments in South African history and histories of photography that we were not previously aware of. We came face to face with, countless images. This is one of the images that grabbed our attention. It was taken by Alf in Uitenhage on March 21st in 1985 during a demonstration marking the 25th anniversary of the Sharpeville massacre. Seemingly unaware that the government had banned the demonstrations, the protesters were suddenly faced with police gunfire in which more than 20 people lost their lives. We reconstructed the banner to make direct reference to the banner in Khumalo's image. To single out this reference from a photograph was our attempt to reinstate the fact of history lived or destiny foretold. Metaphorically, the banner made reference to the sort of determination that characterized the apartheid era. It is a symbolic declaration to the state that no amount of physical casualties would extinguish the people's desire to be free. We foregrounded this banner and this statement, they will never kill us all, to also dramatize continuity of polarization, they versus us. Our intention in so doing being to revive a discursive platform within which the current spaces of struggle might be critically examined through its many archives. As an artistic platform, we have kept a flexible structure that should not be mistaken for an institution, even if it thinks through questions regarding the future of institutions, exploring context-specific approaches and operational strategies for artistic and curatorial research. At the end of 2012, CHR marked an end to its 2-year existence with the event called We're Absolutely Ending This. This for us was an exercise in foreseeing rather than anything else. Of course, we also live in a society where death faces us on a daily basis, but also South Africans, as has been observed by historian Michael Tissetat, have an intimate relationships with spectacles of conclusion. In our history, imagined threats of endings have borne down on us with relentless regularity, and most major social and political changes have been imbued with millennial significance. Even in the midst of the complicated exception of our beginning, the end loomed as it always has. We therefore took the end in our own hands, stating it before it happens. For us, the end was an opportunity to consider what it means to outlive central questions foregrounded during our formation. The day's program included a series of simultaneous activities and presentations that ran from noon to midnight on December 12, 2012. Performances, video projections, PowerPoint presentations, concept food, dance breaks, discussions, a boxing match, talks, and lectures looked back at the project's 2 years of operation from the vantage point of concluding remarks. It made sense, therefore, to return to the rope-a-dope and to be open to doubt and allow for spaces of mixed feelings. In South African writers Bessie Head's autobiographical novel, A Question of Power, which she wrote in exile in Botswana, she explains the main character's discovery that she had accepted an unnatural situation and adapted it to the flow of her life by telling a story of a school teacher who was fond of his brandy. The teacher takes a bottle of brandy into the toilet, intending to have a few sips, but he keeps on taking a few more sips, all the time peeping around the door to spy out the whereabouts of the principal. Soon he becomes quite drunk and reverses this activity. He opens the door, takes a few sips, closes the door, and looks for the principal inside the toilet. Our ending was partially due to the questions of mystery regarding audiences, partially because of expectations of deliverance, and partially the trap of sustenance. CHR's ending foregrounded our intention to not simply conclude a single phase, but rather to re-evaluate larger institutional functions and timeframes that could enable a different existence. This is a performance that was an ongoing with our project titled Xenoglossa, a research project, with my collaborators Kimang Lehulere and Donna Kukama, titled The Unknowing Grammar of Inhabiting a Text written by Kimang and them trying to work through the text and create a performance that didn't need to be seen somehow. After our ending, we were, or just before we were thinking about the ending, we received this invitation from the new museum, Museum as Hub in New York, to create a project on the 5th floor. And we decided to take on the project, which was titled After Tears. The title After Tears references terminology relating to after-burial gatherings that have, over the past 20 years, become a popular youth culture in South African townships, or rather, as part of a contemporary Black experience. This trend is also known as visinons, which is a question in Afrikaans, meaning who is seeing us or who sees us, which then became a fitting frame for projects that explored commemoration and more specifically the cultural performances and rituals around death, whether that of a person, institution, or era. Working in Johannesburg and other international contexts, CHR also employs the question of visinons in order to consider who, how, and to what ends our projects have been or will be seen. Leveraging the platform of the new museum, we looked at how our own ending may afford us a different kind of visibility and instigate a new way of inhabiting institutions, one perhaps akin to haunting. We became ghost-like, or symptoms that signal that the past is never past and that the future is not only to come, it is already partly there. The future of a pseudo-institutional body is the same as its end. After all, being something that had a right to exist, one has also the right to die from time to time. Perhaps this position allows us to keep seeing these pink elephants, which, as you may know, is a euphemism for drunken hallucination. Historical reenactments, as we see them, are therefore spaces of convenience where we allow ourselves to pursue history with a drunkenness that seems virtually impossible to achieve. A new economy of commemorating and one stripped of accountability, of ideas of nation building, and one which is open to moments of surprise, moments that are neither depressive nor awkwardly hopeful. As part of After Tears, in one Sunday June 23rd, Donna Kukama, CHR member, enacted a series of performances that explored the politics of linguistic, cultural, and historical translations. Her investigation spanned South Africa's recent past, including the historic 1976 Soweto uprising, in which students protested the teaching of certain subjects in the Afrikaans language, and more recent eruptions of xenophobic hostility. Throughout the day, Kukama explicitly embodied the physical and existential labor of translation, provoking the public to participate, other times asking them only to observe. And in some instances, gestures went altogether unnoticed. Kimang Lehulere, also a CHR member, presented a lecture performance that considered as a starting point the metaphor of falling and how this connects with CHR's decision to absolutely end in 2012. For Kimang, to fall not only signals a physical or ideological ending, to fall to one's death or the fall of a regime, but also an intensification of a desire to fall in love, bringing to bear the entangled conditions of life, death, love, and resistance. He structured the performance around instances of falling drawn from CHR's 2 years of activity, in addition to art historical precedents and events key to rethinking South Africa's past. The performance was staged for a small number of guests, recasting the space of public viewing as one of intimate observance that resonates with other works in the space. Kimang contemplated what it means for an institutional body that cannot live yet never dies. With these questions, we launched our new logo as part of the project, The Second Coming. Thank you.